Rats! Nope, that's where we're starting. How many rats are there? Well, a quick Google search and we discovered that there are about 7 billion rats, which is a lot of rats. The method to calculate rat population is questionable, to say the least, but assuming there are actually 7 billion rats or so, where are they at? Rat distribution maps indicate that there are a few places that are not inundated with ratacy. These are sentences I wrote. Jesus, the rat distribution map's the whole reason why I started making this. I saw it like 5 months ago, and it led me down a rabbit hole you wouldn't believe. Rats don't exist in places that are too cold for small rodents to exist. There are a few random places that have no rats, like Alberta, but that's usually because of the weather. Of the places that there are rats, China and India has the most. This makes sense, as if you've ever seen some of those cities like Jesus Christ, that is a biblically correct pile of trash. Like, have you ever seen a barn full of rats? It's kind of like that, but in the city. So a skyscraper of rats. Rat population per country is hard to calculate because no one's counting everything down Earth. Jesus, like, what? Do you just like 1, 2, 3 bungaloo? Where there are people, there are usually rats, and people have been using the population of humans to estimate the population of rat. This isn't practical, as we do not repopulate as quickly as rats do. Rats do a lot of fucking. Rats do a lot of reproduction, which facilitates rat death. And we cannot... Rats do a lot of reproducing, which facilitates rat death. And we cannot apply context to rat death or population without talking about rat spawn rates. Rat reproduction, which is nuts by the way, is the engine which facilitates rat death. Rats produce 5 times a year from the rat factory, and the output is about 7 per cycle. Meaning in just 1 year, one rat factory can produce 35 rats, which is impressive. But rats are ready to produce after being made in just 5 weeks, and a rat pregnancy lasts about 3 weeks. Assuming that the gender distribution is half-half, that means a pair of rats can produce 15,000 rats at the end of a year. Which is math I didn't personally do, because even if I was wrong, this is actually a conservative estimate. One small issue though, rats die. Well, like a lot. Now I'm sure this is common knowledge, but plenty of rats die from being tested in labs. To be fair, I'd rather they use rats than, you know, us. But what about the rest of the rats? We got rats that die to traps, poison, and guns. And then we got rats that die to the Great EP. This isn't a joke. Rats actually just die in their sleep. They don't always die to predators on Discord or, you know, in a forest. You know, there are too many things that can murder a rat and return them to food status. And aside from cars or old men with childhood trauma, we can always rely on the good old food chain. There's really no counterplay for a rat if you're staring down a cat, and falcons or owls don't really give them a break either. Honestly, if you're gonna be at the bottom of the food chain, you should expect a high mortality rate. In fact, rats boast a 95% mortality rate, which, while high, pales in comparison to the rate of RTS games dying on Steam. I lost the plot of the video halfway through scripting this. Let me spread some more misinformation. We can describe rats as a furry rodent with 2 eyes, a snout, frontal teeth, quadrupedal with a middle section akin to a teardrop, 4 paws on each leg consisting of 4 long nubs, and a single thumb-like nub. Rats have reverse jointed legs, which means they excel at assault boosting, and long furless tails, as well as 2 round ears on either side of the head near the neck. Rats are typically smaller, with fur colors commonly within a range of brown, gray, white, or incomprehensible. Rats also have whiskers. Am I missing anything? Nails? I mean, yeah, that's a rat. Can someone go ahead and like draw a rat using that description? To just like try to draw something that's like not a rat. So see what you come up with. Rats are good swimmers, so that explains how rats spread with humans just fine. Well, like they missed their boat? No problem, they just went to the next one or something. This also tracks their poor eyesight, because going in and out of damp, enclosed, and dark places doesn't always give you god-tier mantis shrimp eyes. Rats also squeak in ultrasonic and normal frequencies, so to not make things too complicated for me, I'll summarize. So you know when someone sees a puppy, and their voice goes up several octaves, like, oh my god, it's a puppy! Ah! Yeah, rats follow the same principle. You can't really hear their squeaking, it's a sign that their squeak is a happy squeak. If you can't hear them squeaking, you know, they might be in distress. That's a lie. If you cannot hear their squeaking, it's often a sign that the squeak is a happy squeak. You can use bat listening tools to hear these squeaks, as bats are also enjoyers of the ultrasonic frequencies. Besides the obvious, excellent sniffing property that everyone is aware of and their great sense of hearing, rats also got the average sense of feel, except for the whiskers, which are whiskers. Rats will also eat just about anything. The easiest way to describe this is you put an American in a buffet catering for all sorts of cultural foods. You got like Asian dim sum, steak and potatoes, haggis, burek, you know, you got curry on one side, someone's chopped up a whole lobster, you got buns, you got like lamb chops, you got like the whole 9 yards, man. You got all the good stuff, and then like on the side you got dessert, you got like ice cream, jello, you know, someone's set up a stand over there and it's literally just a bunch of glizzies. No bun, just the dog, right? And then like someone set up a Costco stand where all of God's like best creations are. You know, like the poutine there, you got the pizza. Why did I think of poutine the moment I thought of Costco? They're capable of eating everything, and yet when you observe their eating habits, the salad aisle remains untouched. In a very similar fashion, rats can eat everything, but they prefer meat and grain. Rats also have a very complex and bulky social life, playing like normal animals do, and fighting like normal animals do. Which is to say, rat-on-rat violence is not simply encouraged, it is mandatory. Therefore, if I tell you that rats are territorial, and only like rats they're familiar with, you probably know exactly what that means. However, I feel the need to point out that rats huddle. And like, you know, this be obvious if you think about how they survive winter, but like, they have like just like huge piles of cuddle bugs, and they just kind of like groove each other, and exist within each other. That didn't sound right. And exist with each other during the winter, which is adorable. As I'm sure you're aware, tunnels are excellent traps for combat. Fill a pit full of spikes, and put it in a false path for people to walk over, only for them to fall into the pit. Add gas chambers so that people will descend deeper into the tunnel, only to be in a room filled with noxious rat cloud. Ugh. Oh, nasty. Rats obviously don't have modern technology, but they use tunnels much in the same way, digging out homes to make a safe, cozy spot for all of rat kind. Rats are typically low health, fodder creatures which can kill you in great numbers, but are otherwise not a threat. Even some of the larger rats are just used as a way to blockade an area or force you to spend some extra time smacking something big. I propose something greater. As a ratkin myself, I've always found that rats should be treated like better than pets. Like, yeah, there's a lot of them and all that are good for the environment, but rats actually make great pets. Rats are very social, able to learn tricks, and are unrealistic to commit infanticide, as that would be difficult to do when you're the size of the average penis. That being said, the word intimidating and rat don't often work nicely together. In Barony, for example, you can drop a rat in 2 swings, and even on the harder difficulties, rats are hardly ever concerned. Bonus points if you run into Algernon and your friend dies from first. They're not scary animals, they're usually food and sometimes they are billions, so why is everyone scared of them? Humans are hardwired to dislike small things that skitter and run very quickly, such as spiders. Those are predators for rats. We think and can make conjecture that rats cause the plague of all time, and many more. They eat crops, they run rampant, destroy silos, and they are better than humans at being human. It's not hard, they're pretty fucked and I'm all for it. Fuck being the good guy, when the bad guys look like this and are right, of course I'm gonna start harvesting bugs for oil. And if the bug looks more fleshy and starts asking higher wages, don't ask questions, just liberate its insides. So should you be afraid of rats? No. No, probably not. I've seen the Jane Doe fan on the internet, and I can say, rat breeding is the hottest topic of the touch-starved gooner. And knowing that you're a part of this demographic, I would like to take a moment to say that the internet is absolutely right about sat rats. Rats have an incredible amount of sex very quickly, comparing but not eclipsing the rate of a medieval peasant in a noble's house. When I say that rats have hentai-accurate nuts, I mean it. Rat ejaculation is not limited to the same things that human ejaculation is. We are talking absolutely biblical, mind/mind control, non-category corruption tier with orcs and goblins involved. This somehow leads to less stillborns and a higher, almost guaranteed rate of pregnancy. Don't think about it too hard. Don't think about how it works. Just trust me. You don't want to know the answer. And this means that not only can they do one female until they are ensured to have children, but they can move on to multiple females before passing out in this speed. Wait, do rats sweat? Oh, rats don't sweat. Oh, actually, they sweat. Okay. They just don't sweat. It's kind of... Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. I see. Well, I mean, yeah, that checks out. Okay. Female rats can nurse while pregnant. What this means is that they can breastfeed while caring for their young. They're also carrying on a sack like a matriarch, swing quickly to your submarine, while, you know, feeding their smaller, like, little shits. They also self-generate. Wait, so the lower ones on the social ladder get sent to their deaths if they need some more resources or land or some bullshit? Yeah, I was gonna say that rats make great mothers because they take care of the smaller ones more, and they tend to give more attention to their young, and if they're lower on resources, they'll start to like, yeah, okay, Jesus, fuck, I'm sold on rats. We love classism. Anyways, rats are cannon fodder. And I'll admit, there's a benefit for things that are so easily farmable that you start doing it by bulk, but it's kind of like Balatro. Would you rather have 50 chips or 8 mole? Like, you're probably taking the 8 mole, right? Like, that's the direction I'd like to take with rat. Not to remove the quantity, but to improve the quality of rat threat levels. Rats can hunt in a pack, they can kill ducks and bigger animals. There's no good visual representation here because I'm not putting in a video of rats hunting and ducks, so let me just get some marbles going for your zoomer brain to fixate on while I get through the next part of the script. I'm going to stop pretending at this point, like I have a direction for this video. The rough idea initially was that we make a deep dive into rat deaths, but then I learned there's no actual good concrete numbers for the amount of rodents that have died. Rat bursts are a no-go. At the time of recording, I actually had an idea for this video like 7 months ago, and I kept going through a fucking rabbit hole. I just kept going through a rat tunnel. I just kept digging, and like, it's just like the rat population is just a route on the path to either rat life or rat death. So like, I can't really make one about that either. So we eventually settled on the next best thing, which is just go around killing rats. This is going to be a recurring theme, as my next video will be about putting a fucking giant steel tube in the ocean and seeing how a group of idiots can handle it. And since I put about 500 hours into making one of those tubes, I can also write a tangent for that video. I have decided to make my own numbers, as it will be more practical and accurate than the slop produced by the world's governments and scientists. In the spirit of the scientific method, I will also be rage quitting every game after every single attempt. I must also take the longest path to each rat, as this mimics trying to fish rats out of the tunnels like the war vet that I am attempting to mirror in this situation. For the first game that I have with rats, Barony. For this, I will be playing a cleric. This is often considered a noob class because of the high starting stats and resources available to it. For example, clerics have access to Troll's Blood, which is a spell that grants you and any nearby allies gradual health regeneration, which is very useful early on when healing is scarce. Except, clerics also come with healing potions which heal you for half your health at this stage of the game. The beginning. Clerics also come with summon scrolls, which I heavily recommend you use. Monsters that come from the base cleric summon scrolls are still useful, and they level up as you do. You can also save up the summon scrolls to bless them later, which is also a valid strategy. Not because you get better summons, but because you get humans. Humans come with equipment, and while they are useful, most of the time, they are not useful, and you'll be taking their items to either use for yourself or sell to shop for gold. The summons you're hoping for are slimes. Why are you hoping for slimes? Because slimes are pay-to-win bullshit. A single slime at the lowest possible level, 4, has twice the amount of health the starting cleric has, decent armor and physical attack, an acceptable damage type resistance spread for all the rats we will be hunting, but most importantly, they have magic. And if you somehow manage to roll an orange slime, congratulations, because that single orange bastard is now your personal pepper spray, extra spicy edition. Conversely, green slimes spit acid, which is great for bones, but also for turning rats into paste. Blue slimes spit water, which is why riot police put them inside of a water cannon used for riot control. That means that the same application can be used for the protesters you will be running to in the dungeon, and it's quite effective. Just like a girl on Twitter who treats their camera the same way a dog treats a signpost, they will be sprayed on, and they will get wet. This doesn't help us, but I find it quite humorous when I find a spell of lightning and fry them. You know those memes of the KFC deep fryer when the rat decides to honor their ancestors using them? Yeah, that's exactly how everything wet dies when exposed to lightning. It's a 1.5 times damage buff, I think, is it? I don't remember. In any case, in addition, you also start off with a blessed mace, some decent armor, and an entire loaf of slightly aged bread. We begin, and I spam use my scrolls. 3 rats and 3 slimes. An ideal start. We run into some skeletons and I remove them with my mace. A few loot rooms later, and we run into our first victim. I bring my huge, fat implement of destruction onto the head of this rodent and record our first COVID death. Immediately after, we run into a mimic. I run out of the room. My ally rats are churned into corpse starch. This raises our rat death stats, but in the process, I join my fallen rodent allies. For a game about the classic dungeon delving RPG system, there's very few rats in the game at the beginning. That is, if you don't run into Algernon. I have put over 100 hours into this game. You know how many times I've found this albino fuck? once. Moving on to Helldivers, we have our first big hurdle, killing Sony Entertainment. To this day, I still have no idea how to conquer this behemoth, so consider this challenge ongoing. Initially, I was going to use the analogy of like bugs in their tunnels, or to like voteless in their numbers as a cheap reference, but like this game literally doesn't fucking work. This game doesn't function. But it's funny, so I'll keep the segment in the video for now. Squid breeding videos soon. Rat Shaker.
We squeeze the rat until its windpipe snaps, and continue to crush its nearly lifeless body until its spinal cord gives out, and mercy for the corpse's mind, to stop experiencing the pain
of living in Kansas! Also, God comes down from the heavens just to show his contempt for my actions. Finally, we come to Ultra Kill. We start our hunt by landing into the fire, on brutal difficulty. On the way to the rat, we'll be clearing our way with P ranks. I'm no coward, and I will not sit here and let people tell me I'm playing the game wrong, which means I'll be playing the game in the most incorrect way possible. We clear the first level of the game, nothing else happens. What, you already seen the intro. We go into the meat grinder, and clear it faster than smallpox spreads through an unvaccinated neighborhood. You may notice in the leaderboard section, a certain cat at the top. They're trans, which is a recurring theme in this game. Similar to your average fighting game tournament, everyone who plays Ultra Kill that are anywhere competent with this game are gender bending using chemicals beyond our comprehension. Why do I say this? Because I'm your average cis male, and the only difference between me and your average gym person is that I'm a boy kisser! This doesn't mean that I'm gay, this just means that I kiss the homies goodnight. 5 feet apart, with socks on, and we say no homo after. Anyways, 2 levels down, next we go to Double Down. This is the first level where we get to encounter our anime protagonist. We kill him using his own weapon and move on. One Machine Army. Pretty accurate to its name, we blitz through the enemies in record time. And still, I lose to the T-Girl, whose cyber grind looks and sounds like Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. We then get to the Cerberus fight, and I show off a tech that most people don't use or care about, electrocution. I don't quite understand it myself, but let me attempt to show you a glimpse into my mind's eye. This is a nail gun. When you shoot nails and you hit an enemy, the enemy gets nailed and the video goes on a certain site for a certain type of hamster. If they get electrocuted in any way, they become a vector for COVID and spread it to nearby victims. Electricity can spread to anything any number of times, but every item they spread to can only do it to a set number of times. Things like magnets, chainsaws, and coins spread electricity. In short, we use this tech to cook stone into delicious, yummy blood. Don't think about it too hard. Heart of the Sunrise. We grab the skulls and we put them into podiums. Finally, we end up in the burning world. There's a special strategy to getting to the rat as quickly as possible, and I use it to track down the rodent fuck. As a cancerous rodent, it sets off my Geiger counter so I can find it in record time. Thankfully, in the new age of YouTube, I can shoot at rats that are cancerous as much as I want, and besides, this one's quite toxic. So I give him the electric chair treatment and move on to his father. After punching his bullets back at him, I close the game, my job done, and my life project complete after removing his Second Amendment rights. I would cover B Rising, but you can pick up rats, they make much better pets. Also, I'd be sitting next to a rat production station holding left click for a half hour. I don't think that's interesting for anyone. In summary, we killed 8 rats in the span of this video, and extrapolating that to the scale of a year, we get the amount of times I blew a capillary in my brain trying to calculate anything for the sake of rat death. I don't know why I did all of this, honestly. I love rats, so killing them all for this petty project of mine is a bit nuts. On the other hand, I see no reason that rats shouldn't be killed in more media. This isn't to say that rats are mindless automatons that exist only to respawn. As far as we know, they experience the same feelings of loss and grief as a person. But like, what better animal to take a L than the bottom feeder of the kingdom? I was genuinely surprised when I loaded into Barony and ran into a total of like 5 rats. And I can kinda get it and make my own assumption. From a gameplay perspective, it's just a horde, and sometimes you aren't looking to get stimulated by killing a horde. It's also probably not easy to load that much AI for simple rats, and most of the time you're looking for a bottom feeder that can fight back, so rats don't often fit the bill. There are 56 known current species of rat, as of the typing of the sentence and my Google search on rat species. Rats bear a striking resemblance to mice, and while I have not covered mice in this video, they do have much the same concepts and coverage as rats. I brought this as an aside from rat morphology, because it was also an aside in the article I read. But rat tails are kinda OP. Like, it's just a long, slender thing of tail, right? But, like, it's got a lot of blood going through it, which helps a lot with temperature regulation. It's also, like, a weaker point for a rat, but, like, you can also shed the skin on the tail so that it can escape being stepped on or being bitten. The tail is like a navigational tool for the rat too, which, yeah, that one checks out. Like, It's kind of like, you got breadcrumbs. You got, like, breadcrumbs on, like, a trail. It's, like, behind you. But, like, you know, because you're a rat, it's, like, the breadcrumbs just follows you. So, like, you'll, like, anything behind you, like, anything the tail's touching, you're like, oh, yeah, I've been there before. Like, that's probably behind me. Let us speak more on rat domestication. The beginning of rat domestication would be for sport and for entertainment, such as for rat pit fights and, rat pit fights. A lot of rat pit fights. Eventually, though, after one of these fights, someone would bring home one of these rats on the brink of death after losing to their rival. This rat would proceed to be tossed in a well, never to be seen again. Well, what I'm trying to say is that these rats were not treated with a lot of respect, and they weren't treated humanely. But after some time, people would stop using these rats for sport, and instead for science and companionship. It took a while, but since rats have been domesticated in this way for a very long time, it makes sense that they would be great companions for humans in the short term. In the modern era, lab rats are treated a fair bit better than before. This isn't to say we don't do experimentations on rats that would, in strict terms, end their lives, but we don't do it because it's fun anymore. Instead, we sacrifice rats in order to learn about the effects of chemicals or other variables on the body. You see, rats and humans share a staggering amount of physiology. Like, we have brains, they have brains, we have kidneys, they also have kidneys. They can give up their bodies for a better life. We can very much do a similar thing. What I'm trying to say is that, you know, rats can give up their bodies for a better life. You know, they give their bodies to science, and they help us with a lot of things on that aspect. Makeup notwithstanding. But, you know, now that they're domesticated, you'd expect them to be pretty chill, and they are. Some lab rats even drive cars around for silly treats, and just to have some fun. However, without getting too much into it, most of the time, rats are not having fun in the lab. They're, like, getting slaughtered. They often retire early in their lives for a lot of reasons. Fancy rats are typically rats that have undergone extensive domestication. Unlike your average puppy girl in Discord, you need to put an incredible amount of effort to produce one. They are typically bred for several generations, kept in cages, and in contact with humanity for long enough for the rats to become dependent on the humans that take care of them. To these rats, we must be a god, keeping them in their own world, caring for them while they sit there and enjoy the presence of their giant caretaker. They probably set up effigy sites and rituals in an attempt to keep us satiated on whatever form of sustenance they come up for us, creating a trap of a religion entirely of their own making. Fancy rats, being bred in captivity and in close proximity to humans, also have their fair share of differences from the average rat. They're typically slender, with large ears and larger tails, but also come with different coloration, either lighter than their average coloration, or entirely different from their former rat ancestry. Fancy rats have less of a chance of catching parasites due to their proximity with humans and due to the shelter that humans give them, but they have more health issues due to also humans and their shelter. All in all, these changes highlight how fancy rats are just the femboys of the rat kingdom, and will happily bottom to their rat master. This is also reflected in their behavior, as fancy rats will often go belly up and turtle if they are losing a fight, as opposed to wild rats that just run away. I'm not going to go too much into fancy rats, we're just covering, like, the rats overall, and this isn't, like, a rat video about, like, taming and, teaching your rats how to do tricks. Anyways, that's it for this video. I started making this as a project to calculate rat deaths, and it's ended in me making slop on the internet, which means I'm going to be making more. You'd think that this would mean that I would also be taking an 8-month vacation to make the next video, but I started this project at the beginning of my rat autism, and while I can safely say that I am now integrated with rat society, the next video I'm making doesn't require me to do that much research. I have been making deep-sea metal shafts for years, and the steel container is a perfect place for transporting rats. No subtle drop here, I'm just